Now, some days there's an overarching, compelling story, and then other days, like today, there's really not. But I can talk about a lot of really critical updates to get you caught up to speed on what's been going on. That's what we're doing today. All right, we'll start here. Zelensky thanked Ukraine's warriors for hitting Russia where it hurts, from the front lines to deep inside its own territory. He singled out the SBU for a solid strike on Russia's biggest Baltic oil terminal in Primorsk, confirming heavy damage. These are real sanctions. Russia's war on oil and gas. He said, we're cutting that lifeline. They really are, in such a significant way that here's like a dozen or more strikes. Now into its 45th day, Ukraine continues to sanction Russian oil refinery industry with extreme prejudice. And look at so here's where Ukraine is. And look at all the places from St. Petersburg all the way out here. Like some of the largest strikes are more than 1,000+ kilometers away from Ukraine. It's really impressive what they've been able to do. And I haven't seen a more recent calculation. Last calculation that I saw was about 7 days ago or so, that was north of 20% of Russian oil refining capacity is offline. And the strikes have kept coming. So it's got to be moving up into 24, 25 conservatively. I mean, I just don't know what it's going to be, and I'm still looking for that. Here are the Ukrainian drone strikes on the Ufa oil refinery today. This was yesterday. Longest range strikes on Russian oil refinery so far, 900 miles. 1,450 kilometers from Ukraine, possibly 1,600 kilometers from the launch site. Like, they're able to do these kinds of things, and it's going to keep coming. Now, again, you're hitting the low-hanging fruit first, so technology has to help catch them up so that they can actually do more of this. But wow. Okay, let's shift gears. U.S. Envoy Keith Kellogg, I talked about him a little bit yesterday. Keith Kellogg on the Russian army. The Ukrainians have done a great job on that one, and this is not the Russia-Soviet Union that I knew in the middle of the Cold War. It's not your mother's Russia. It's a different Russia. Like, somehow we have in our heads that Russia is this big, huge thing. It's really not. It's like 2 to 3% of the global economy. It's like if they didn't have nukes, they would be almost considered irrelevant and backwards and inefficient, because you have that much land and you're doing what with it? It's good to understand that that's what's actually going on. Okay, and then there was this other thing from Kellogg where Kellogg says that Trump asked me into the Oval Office to ask if Russia is winning. I said no. I told him that his chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Keene, he also said no as well. Okay, that's important, because there was a shift in Trump's demeanor some time ago, and this was about the time where he was talking about it. Of course, Gary Kasparov replied to that and said, and then Trump called Putin, who told him that Russia was winning, and that was that. He probably also told him that tariffs are great, vaccines are bad, and Biden and Zelensky started the war. Well, it does seem like somebody else is in Trump's ear. Okay, another follow-up story. Sikorsky, now after the incursion of Russian drones into Poland, Sikorsky is urging NATO and EU to impose no-fly zone over Ukraine. Polish foreign minister has called on NATO countries to start shooting down Russian missiles and drones directly over Ukraine. We are technically capable of doing this, but the decision must be made jointly. Okay, so part of the problem is NATO and blocs like NATO are actually really powerful if they're really powerful. I mean, if they can stay together, if they can hang together, if they can keep themselves doing what they're supposed to be doing. But to coordinate that is really tough. And then what we also found was that Poland and NATO have been exposed as being far less efficient at doing this than what Ukraine can do. Actually, they need to be adopting what Ukraine has done in order to do more of what Ukraine is doing. He also urged NATO to take control of Russia's shadow fleet in the Baltic Sea. If one of these ships sinks, Europe will face an environmental disaster of unprecedented scale, he warned. And, you know, the shadow fleet is really kind of decrepit by modern shipping standards. Okay, next. A new onboard footage of the French Air Force Rafale fighters. Did I say that right? Some of you are coaching me, so thank you for the pronunciation. I'm never offended by your pronunciation tips, by the way. I'm trying to learn and grow just like you are. Okay, Rafale fighters deployed to eastern Poland as part of NATO's Operation Eastern Sentry. The fighters conducted their first armed deterrence patrol over Polish airspace yesterday. Again, you're doing this rather than what Ukraine's doing. Better to join what Ukraine's doing and figure out how to do something more like what they're able to do, their anti-drone devices and things along those lines. Okay, overnight, what was Russia doing? They launched 84 attack drones, 3 S-300 missiles from multiple directions. Ukrainian air defenses shot down or jammed 59 drones. This wasn't much, but it still did some damage. And again, I get nervous when I see lower than average because they save up for a rainy day. It's just been a pattern. They hit Zaporizhzhia suburbs. Houses were burning. Power was cut in the night attack. The Russians targeted rescuers who were extinguishing a fire at a critical infrastructure facility after a UAV hit in Nidzin district of Chernihiv region. 4 specialists from state emergency services were injured. They were hospitalized. They also used 3 FAB-250 bombs. They were dropped by Russian forces on central Kramatorsk this evening. 9 civilians were injured. Russian Z-bloggers were then spreading the joyous good news of some morning footage to cheer up their ordinary Russians, almost leveling an entire small Ukrainian village with 3 FAB bombs. Look how tough and awesome they are when they're attacking civilians. This is a war crime, and nobody's really even saying war crime anymore. They've just become decentralized to it. Listen to this. Sean Pinner posted this. Russia has no moral bar. I mean, really. In the evening, Russians struck a field in Sumy regions with 2 missiles while people were harvesting. 12 injured, according to the prosecutor's office. 11 wounded men. They were taken to the hospital, one of them in serious condition. Tractors and combines were damaged, deliberately targeting peaceful working Ukrainians on a farm. I mean, it was pretty clear they were just harvesting. That's all that they were doing. Other news, a global Starlink outage on September 15th left over 50,000 users disconnected, including Ukrainian troops fighting on the front lines. That's really problematic. Okay, now I've been talking about, as far as we're talking about updates, about every week on a Saturday or Sunday, I've been doing this now, just going over the news week over week of economic issues. And I'm just going to show you one day because I put this out yesterday, Putin's economic lifeline. There's one loophole keeping his war machine alive. Putin's not going to run out of money, but it's going to get harder and harder to obtain it. And he has a bailout plan, and this is what it is. Okay, so with that being said, here's just one day's worth of that economic news. Gas stations in occupied Crimea. I mean, this is one day meaning today's news about the economy. Gas stations in occupied Crimea don't have gasoline. Russians desperately search for gasoline on an empty tank. Quote, "Good morning. Where is gasoline available today? 95th premium. Only right if you know for sure, because I may not make it to 2 gas stations." That's where they are. That's what the refinery hits are causing. Okay. Russia is reviving barter trade to bypass Western sanctions, swapping goods like wheat for Chinese cars and flax seeds for building materials. Reuters reports at least 8 such transactions. 14-page guide issued by Russia's economy minister now instructs companies on how to conduct foreign barter deals. So if you can't figure out how to trade with dollar-denominated trades, which makes it easier for everybody, well, maybe we can swap. How many bushels of wheat is this car worth, right? That's where they are. Russia's housing developers are collapsing. 1 in 5 firms is already in the critical zone as sanctions and mortgage rates are above 25%. 25% mortgages. What? 25%. My mortgage is like 5% or like a little under 5%. Like that's unbelievably difficult to bear up under. Okay, I also talked about this. This little bit here, what I want to highlight is 216 billion rubles are withdrawn from Russian banks in June, 226 in July, 199 billion in August. And then yesterday I was talking about September 1 through 5, which was about 105 billion, if I recall correctly. And now from 6 to 12, it's up to 173. So it's almost to what this was with half the month gone. Like, that's what I'm talking about. There are these signs everywhere about the poor health of the Russian economy. That doesn't mean it's collapsing tomorrow either. Like, I'm not making that kind of claim. Okay, let's talk about the battlefield. 910 Russians off the battlefield, 0 tanks. Tanks seem to have been hiding or being set back or something. 2 armored fighting vehicles, 35 artillery systems, 84 vehicles and fuel tanks. Cross direction, that's the one we highlight every day because it's like that's the high water mark of what's going on. 38 Russian assaults. Zelensky announced good results in the Sumy border region, that's up north. Our units continue to advance toward Ukraine's state border. He said Zelensky also reported significant Russian losses in Kharkiv region, particularly near Kupiansk, as well as in the Donetsk region. Now, remember the bunny ears here? The AFU is also closing another encirclement in the Dobropilia access. So we had the bunny ears get sliced off here, and now it looks like they're going to slice them off here at the base of the bunny head. So things are moving the right direction as far as that goes. Okay, some people have said, well, if NATO defends NATO's territory, it's going to cause World War III or some equivalent stupid something like that. Andrew Perpetua replied to this charge, there is no universe anywhere in the entire multiverse that Russia would have been offended or retaliated for NATO defending its own airspace. The people suggesting that they would are disconnected from reality. There is no possible way Russia would ever do anything about it. He goes on and says, furthermore, the people who think this way, that NATO defending itself would upset the Russians, do not understand the most basic aspect of Russian psychology or motivations. The Russians wouldn't be offended by it. They would respect it. That's right. They don't respect weakness. Failing to defend yourself makes them lose respect for you, and it makes them push further to see how much you will bend. Yep, that's where we are. Okay, some other issues. Massive fire in Fedosia, Russia-occupied Crimea. The fire has so far engulfed 6 hectares or 15 acres, but we don't know exactly what caused it, or at least I don't know exactly what caused it. I can't figure it out, and I don't know that it was caused by Ukrainians or whether it was just, a forest fires happen sometimes. During the week, during the last calendar week, the Unmanned Systems Forces Group struck 5,179 unique enemy targets. I did this video on the drone forces about a week ago, and I showed what they did over the previous month in August, and it was just astounding what they were able to accomplish. And then I showed you last week what they did over week, and so that's another good thing to update as well. Ukrainian Special Forces destroyed a Russian Buk M3 air defense system. It's worth 40 to 50 million. So that's a good day's work when you're hitting something like that. And again, this is with the unmanned aerial forces. Okay, Russian munitions blew up in occupied Donetsk region, and these guys are just standing here and they see that thing go and like, whoa, what happened? Okay. Meanwhile, while we're talking about the Donbass, there's this water crisis, and why not put it out? They don't want to put it out. They don't want to end the water crisis, or at least not according to a Russian propagandist who admitted that the Kremlin has no plans to restore water to Donbass. Instead, they're using the crisis to voluntarily deport people to Siberia. Wait a minute. Water, you don't have enough water, so you're going to have to leave. It's almost like some weird reflection of the Holodomor, where you didn't have enough food, but you have to stay and starve. I mean, it's almost, Stalin era repression and deportations, but with a modern twist. If you ever wondered what it was like to drive under a anti-drone net, this is a picture of what it looks like. But as I understand it, they move through these things. You're still not taking chances. You're not trying to just go for a leisurely stroll. You book it. You put the pedal to the metal. And I'm showing you this because this is a drone show at the Vatican, and I want you to see what's going on. So that's an image of the Pope in drones. Here are other images. I guess that's doves flying away or something, and it's really impressive. They're going to do the Leonardo da Vinci hand finger to finger thing from the Sistine. Yeah, there it is from the Sistine Tower temple. Okay, now if they can do that with drones, if they can coordinate drones like that, what might they be able to? And I'm not saying that the Pope is going to do this, but what might other users of drones be able to coordinate with drones to strike at military targets? It's a mesmerizing spectacle. The Vatican hosted the first ever pop concert and drone show, and that's what you saw. Elon Musk's brother launched 3,500 drones into the sky, and that's what you were just watching there. Okay, last little bit from Darth Putin. On this day in 2022, my first deadline for my army to capture all of Donetsk passed. 1.1 million casualties and several goodwill gestures later, we still have not, all of which just proves that we're winning. So again, the date was October 13th, so this was a couple days ago, but October 13th, 2022. But like you see, like these deadlines, we're gonna take all of it. Well, it didn't work out so well. Okay, well, my friends, I just have one last thing, and that's a shout out to a board member, or actually, it's not board member. It's a graduate Patreon member. His name is Eagle Mob. Eagle Mob was with me from nearly the beginning and argued with me incessantly about things, trying to prove me wrong about things. Well, you got this wrong, or you got that wrong. I appreciate that. I appreciate people that want to challenge my perspective. That's okay. If I'm still a Mets fan, which I am, look at my shirt, right? If I'm still a Mets fan, they're a pretty terrible baseball team in the United States. If I'm not moving from that, I'm not going to move from more important positions, right? All right, my friends, that's all that I have. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes and the shares and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.